You will return immediately to Earth in the Transmat capsule.
How the deuce do you expect me
Get
to...
in.
Look, if you think I'm trusting myself to this bauble...
The capsule is programmed for Earth. Quickly.
Hello, Ethan.
Hi, Sean.
So it is the end of October. Still feel very much in the spooky season.
We are.
And we decided to watch some Comfort Who tonight.
Mm-hmm.
And we spent a while deliberating as to what that would be.
Yeah.
We've only watched the first part of this story. Neither of us have seen it before. And we are both very impressed so far.
Yeah. And pleasantly surprised.
And I don't know, that made me want to watch a Fifth Doctor story. I know.
For everyone not in the know, the Fifth Doctor era is the least watched era in this house.
You need to leave!
Because Sean doesn't really like it. There's chunks of it that I've not seen, and it's the only era that applies to. Today, Sean made history.
I think that I have been missold the Fifth Doctor's era. I think I've watched some clangers, and those have been my first introduction to the era, and it's left a bad taste. But the more that I see, the more that I get it.
It's weird for me because the Fifth Doctor ones that I watched when I was young, I still quite like them, and I admit that sometimes they're not perfect, but it's Warriors of the Deep, the Five Doctors, and Resurrection of the Daleks and Earthshock. And they're all quite good stories to me. I know that Warriors of the Deep does have some poorer elements.
Clunkers.
But when I was young, I liked them all. I think it's more that you and I watched several in succession that aren't classed as being particularly good. And that kind of solidified your already bleak outlook on the era. But this one, like Mawdryn Undead, seems to be one of those stories that people don't really talk about much in fandom.
Maybe we're yet to find out why.
The Fifth Doctor season in the middle of his 3 seasons that he did. And the opening 3 stories are actually linked together in what's called the Black Guardian trilogy. Did you know that, Sean?
Is that Chicken Man?
Yeah.
And is this his first...
Crowhead.
Is this his first part?
Yeah. And I didn't realise it was also Turlo's introduction, but that makes complete sense.
Let's start from the beginning. So we open on a group of twinks in the wild running in tight shorts.
Here we go.
You know it's a J&T produced episode. But then you get a very strange person, this guy seductively like stroking his car and gurning and like making noises.
He's not seductively stroking it.
He is.
He's just passionate
Did we
about
watch the
retro
same
cars.
episode?
A 1929 Humber 1650 Open Tourer.
And it's funny as well, like the minute we saw Turlo, we thought,
Tory.
oh, he's a private schoolboy. All of a sudden, all his behaviour makes sense, what we've seen so far. He's a bit anti-establishment, isn't he?
He's not the first Tory to step aboard the TARDIS, and he won't be the last.
No.
So, private schoolboy Tory Turlo, he's introduced.
It's his friend, who he refers to as Hippo, because it's like a slangified version of his name, isn't it?
I mean, from part 1, I'll jump ahead slightly. The Brigadier being part of this story is quite random and quite shoehorned in. I don't understand why the Brigadier's hanging around this private school.
Is he not a teacher?
When did he teach? He doesn't teach.
No, he's not been shown to
scolds.
teach, but is it not kind of, if he's friends with the headmaster, maybe he's like a supply teacher or something?
Maybe, yeah.
Because I
And
don't know what else he'd be doing there.
he's teaching alien biology or something Unity.
But basically, Turlo and his friend, Turlo like boots him into this car against his will, and they go for a little spin, don't they? And that's when they meet the Brigadier, because while they're like zooming down the road, they narrowly miss crashing into the Brigadier, and that's how they meet the Brigadier. That's why they nearly hit him, because they weren't looking where they were going, and the Brigadier had to swerve out the way. And that's why in the following scene, when Turlo's like lying on the ground and the car's tipped over, the Brigadier's like throwing shade at him because it's Turlo's idiocy that made them hit each other, nearly hit each other.
So then the trickster appears.
Who are you?
A friend.
What is this place?
There's no need to be afraid.
Then tell me who you are.
Your guardian.
Why does he have a bird on his head?
I don't know, because it's a bit like, I don't know really.
It's not very practical.
No.
He's probably got bird shit all over his shoulders.
I don't think it's alive. It's part of his like outfit.
I really wanted it to move. I wanted it to be alive.
You wanted it to go.
Yeah. I think it still might, to be honest. Like when he's happy, his little crow craws. He's going to stroke his crow in front of Turlo.
Right, anyway, let's keep on topic. So Turlo gets knocked out of the car, and yeah, there's quite an interesting shot that's like pointing down, looking at Turlo's body by the car and like all the rubble and stuff. And it's like Turlo's seeing his body, like his spirit's lifted away from his body,
Yeah.
and he's in this like green void. And that's when the Black Guardian appears.
I wrote, man with bird on his head offers him a deal. A guardian, bird shit, camp. Because he's even got like a...
There's no bird shit involved.
He's even got like a leopard collar. Why? Who gave the Guardian the authority to be that cunty?
Well, we don't really know anything about anything, do we? Because we're only in part 1. For whatever reason, the Black Guardian is like, Turlo, I need you to kill the Doctor for me. He's the most evil, like, traveller in the cosmos. Can you do it? And Turlo, understandably, is like, why can't you do it? You've got powers.
Yeah.
And the Black Guardian's like, I can't be seen to be involved. And just like shoots it down. So we don't know what's going on there. But the Black Guardian's got some kind of vendetta and seems to have some sort of control over Turlo.
A sexual control. No, so we're now in the TARDIS, and these are underrated outfits from Tegan and Nyssa. They are on point.
It shows you how little of this season that we know about, because we've never seen these outfits before. I've seen Tegan's from the Mara one. I think that's what she wore at the end of the last season, the white one.
Yeah.
But it's weird to see like Nyssa, because I thought she just wore the same outfit all the way through. It's interesting, and it was nice because it does feel very different to Fifth Doctor episodes that I know, and it's a funny feeling to be watching like a new episode of Fifth Doctor. I'm actually really enjoying it because I'm used to things like Arc of Infinity and Time Flight.
I like this one because it's like life on the TARDIS. I love
the Fifth
seeing
Doctor,
that.
Yeah, the Fifth Doctor era does do that quite a bit, but I think it's often marred by like dodgy other stuff going on. But this one feels really, the scripting in it feels really good.
I agree.
Yeah.
Although the Fifth Doctor still doesn't seem very fond of his companions. He's sort of annoyed that they're there. And actually, he's really nice to Turlo.
Yeah, I know.
And he doesn't
That's
even
baffling.
know him. And he's all excited to have this little apprentice. Yeah, so it was cool because you get some carryover from the previous story involving the Mara. I haven't seen it, so I didn't understand it. But I
Actually, you have, but I think we were drunk and in Gran Canaria.
No, we were drunk after your brother's wedding.
Ah, that's right.
Yeah, we only got through the first part.
Right, okay.
And we passed
That's probably
out.
why I don't remember it either.
Yeah, I remember eating a really nice sandwich from the hotel kitchen.
Same.
Yeah, so, okay, is that the one with Martin Clune in it?
Oh, he's in one of the Mara ones. I don't know which one he's in.
Okay, well, yeah, so
I think it's that one, Sean.
it's
Yeah.
nice to have some continuity.
That's the thing, is that the Fifth Doctor era is quite similar to the First Doctor era in that way, because a lot of the story threads are linked, albeit loosely, by like companion arcs and like the family situation. So maybe if we were to watch more Fifth Doctor, we'd find it more engrossing. I think in Peter Davison's first season, it's probably not done as slickly as it is in later ones. My experience is definitely that his later episodes are generally more tightly scripted. And I think Peter Davison himself said, if the quality of the script had always been as good as it was in his last season, he'd have stayed on for another season. But by the time he got them through, he'd already decided to leave.
And I might regret saying this, but this kind of makes me want to watch the Fifth Doctor's era from the start to the end. Because it's the era I'm most unfamiliar with.
Yeah.
And there'd be a lot of twists and turns, I imagine, a bit like when I watched the Seventh Doctor's era recently.
Yeah.
That was
Maybe
for
we
the
could
first
give that a
time
go.
in order. And maybe, but we'll see how this one goes. But yeah, so Turlo's in the sick bay and his headmaster visits. Also, how old is Turlo meant to be? Because I always thought he was 40.
Well, funnily enough, I don't think he's supposed to be 40 in canon, given that he's at a boys' school. But
That's what surprised me.
I always thought he looked older. But seeing this episode, he does look really young here.
So what?
So
35?
I don't really know what's going on. But if he's at like a boarding school, he'd be like, I don't know, college age?
Also, Turlo is such a massive liar.
Oh, yeah. He lies left, right, and centre.
He's such an unlikable character from the start.
I don't mind him in this. I can see why he is the way he is now. And I've never seen this before, so I never got it. And now I sort of see why he is like he is. I mean, obviously, we've watched Planet of Fire. God knows how he ends up in a boarding school in England from Planet of Fire, which is his like native planet, isn't it? But whatever.
Yeah, he blames Ibbotson for the car crash. He said that Ibbotson was behind the wheel.
Yeah, his hippo friend.
Yeah, that's mean.
Everyone's mean to him.
And then Turlo finds on his bedside table a trickster's box.
Yeah, like the equivalent of a trickster's box,
The
right?
parallels are unreal so far.
Yeah, and that's there to like, as a physical reminder that the Black Guardian's got this kind of hold over him and that he's got a bargain with him. So in return for being returned to life by the Black Guardian, he has to kill the Doctor.
Mm-hmm. I wrote that the music is really good. It's like the electric guitar.
Doctor, something's coming straight for us. We've got to get out of the way.
Doc, you've converged with the warp ellipse.
Doctor!
Hold this steady.
Gonna crash.
I'll try and materialize on board the ship. Hold tight.
It's not as purely synthy sounding, is it?
And the music's exciting. Yeah, it really adds to it because there's some really exciting scenes where there's like this massive spaceship, which is a beautiful, like burgundy red model in space, heading towards the TARDIS, and the Doctor has to land on it. I mean, they went hard on those sets. The Art Deco spaceship. Me and you were both like in awe.
Yeah, I think that's the thing that's so surprising as well, because again, when you compare it to like, well, Arc of Infinity, do you remember that, Sean? That is the season opener of this season. So Arc of Infinity opens the season, and I don't know if it's because it was recorded at the end of the last season or not, but obviously it's not where the budget went, is it? This is clearly where the budget went. It goes Arc of Infinity, Snake Dance, which explains why Tegan's wearing the outfit, and then Mawdryn Undead.
Oh, okay, cool.
I can't believe it, because I always thought Arc of Infinity was so kind of like cheap and a bit crap. But this is the same season, and Mawdryn Undead from the first part feels like everything's come together all of a sudden. I think what I like so much about it so far is the fact that the scripting feels really good. Like you say, the editing and the action for like classic Who feels really competent and speedy. And then the visuals of it all look great. And they're all coming together really nicely, aren't they?
Meanwhile, Turlo is writhing and talking to his trickster's box. I wrote, he's a twitchy thing. And the setting was giving Family of Blood. And the Brigadier gives Ibbotson a scolding.
Ibbotson, and what have you got to say for yourself?
Please, sir. I'm very sorry, sir, but it wasn't my fault, honestly. I'm very sorry, sir.
Ah, Headmaster, I trust you flogged that young man within an inch of his life.
Thank you, Brigadier. But I feel that we should wait until Turlo is restored to health before we take any legal or disciplinary action.
You realize that car was unique.
Quite. But I feel sure that you will agree that we must do what is best for the school.
Yes, well, if you say so, Headmaster.
And then Ibbotson goes to visit Turlo, and I just wrote more lies. Turlo is insufferable. And Turlo decides to leave the sick bay. Ibbotson is following him and fawning over him like his boyfriend.
It's like, Turlo, wait, Turlo.
No, wait, Turlo.
Oh, Turlo, you can't leave me on my own. Oh, please, Turlo.
So we're back on the spaceship, and they're exploring, and I love a good old TARDIS lands. TARDIS crew steps out. They explore a deserted spaceship. Amazing.
Yeah, but it's nice because they walk through all these like sets, and they're not massive, but what you see is really nice. And I feel like you get a lot of very clinical, like panelled spaceships in the Davison era.
Because it's cheap, and it's easy, and it's quick.
And this is different. It's very like ornate and natural looking, and there's like ferns and gold leaf reliefs and things on the walls. And it's like, this does feel very different we've not seen a lot of Peter Davison's stuff, so we shouldn't really judge it. I shouldn't judge it, but I'm surprised, and it's nice to have something that feels fresh and different from this era.
Yeah, I agree. I love the one-liners that Tegan has.
Strange ship. No sign of any passengers.
Probably having cocktails with the captain.
What?
Well, I mean, it's more like the Queen Mary than a spaceship. Take it back. It's not the Queen Mary. It's the Mary Celeste.
Tegan's just so not asked.
She's not impressed, is she?
No. I can never tell if she's trying to get home because she always acts like she doesn't want to be there.
Yeah, what
Even
phase
when-
of the arc she's in.
Yeah.
Of her arc she's in.
Oh my God, this is the story, 2 stories after Amsterdam.
Yeah, so in theory, she
wants to be there.
Yeah.
In theory.
Yeah.
Just no one let her know that.
Yeah.
Amsterdam.
Amsterdam.
Yeah, and then Tegan drags all the artwork they have on board as well.
I think on a long journey they'd want something a little more cheerful.
I wrote the sets are insane, still not over them. And I think it complements the actors as well because they've got more to play around with. It feels more believable.
Yeah.
And I wrote that the Fifth Doctor is travelling around with 2 absolute babes. What a player. I love it. The TARDIS doesn't need Turlo.
Yeah, so by a kind of convoluted back and forth with this like escape pod, Turlo goes into the escape pod, which he finds in the grounds of the school on the instruction of the Black Guardian, gets out of the escape pod having docked on this like posh spacecraft, and the Doctor and co return to the TARDIS to find Turlo already in there, and the Doctor's like his best mate after like 2 seconds. He like treats him like he knows who he is and like he's cool with him helping him out with his experiments, and just leaves Nyssa and Tegan to just be like in the TARDIS on their own.
Ibbotson runs back, doesn't he?
Yeah, because Ibbotson sees the escape pod vanish with Turlo inside, and he like runs back to the school, grabs the Brigadier by the scruff of his neck and drags him back.
If you took more regular exercise, Ibbotson, not only would your body be less disgusting, but you'd enjoy a healthier imagination.
I was not prepared for that drag.
No.
Jesus.
He's a bit of a savage, isn't he? He doesn't have any time for fools.
He's in a bad mood. He's in a bad mood today.
Yeah, it does feel that way.
Yeah. He's pig shit sick of everything.
The phrase is pig sick, not pig shit sick.
Oh, God.
But yeah, he's pig sick of everyone's shit.
Yeah.
This podcast is not for kids at all. We need to put the age warning on there.
It's fine. I wrote that the Fifth Doctor is really chaotic, which I don't mind. It's just, it's nice because the Fifth Doctor's always got something to investigate, and he's running in and out of the TARDIS, and he's like touching all the computers on the spaceship, and he's really trying to work out what the hell's going on. And I like all that. And like Nyssa and Tegan are just sort of following him around and rolling their eyes. And to be fair, Nyssa's being quite helpful. She keeps like trying to work out the mystery, and her and Tegan bounce off each other quite a bit, even though Tegan's like comic relief, isn't she? In the best way.
She's not been that much help, bless her, but she's nice to have around. I like to see Tegan.
I have a question.
Yeah.
So, like you said, the Doctor is best mates with Turlo, and they leave the TARDIS. Why are Tegan and Nyssa walking through the TARDIS with wicker stools?
Because they're sat there waiting for the Doctor and thingy to come back.
Oh, that's so extra.
Yeah, the TARDIS furniture in this season, when it's shown, is like wicker.
Right.
Like in the Five Doctors, when the TARDIS is like full of people and they get those like drinks and fruits out and stuff, it's like the sort of stuff that you might have in like a conservatory in like the 80s.
The TARDIS definitely had a
Bizarre.
phase.
Yeah,
of
yeah.
like conservatory chic.
Yeah.
And Tegan very rightly says,
I don't trust that boy.
Oh, I don't know. I thought he was rather nice.
Yeah, she's not impressed.
No. Because she says, like, he walked into the TARDIS and he didn't batter an eyelid. Who does that?
Yeah, honestly, the way the Doctor reacted to Turlo as well almost implies that, like, whatever hold the Black Guardian has on Turlo, it makes the Doctor trust him more. Because he's like, you accompany me and do this scientific test with me.
Mm-hmm.
Never mind Tegan and Nyssa. Just ditch them.
And Nyssa's counter-argument to Tegan on that point is, didn't you walk onto the TARDIS on the Barnet bypass?
Yeah.
But she made a bloody song and dance about it, which is the normal reaction.
She did. And she was flustered because her aunt had been made small by the master.
Bless her. I haven't seen it.
Legopolis.
Oh, it's a
Don't
Fourth
forget.
Doctor story.
Yeah.
I always forget that she travelled with the Fourth Doctor.
Yeah,
briefly.
yeah. Tegan was in it for ages.
Gosh, I do love Tegan. I do
like
love her.
Tegan. I like Tegan.
And Nissa. I hope they have loads and loads of episodes together because I'm
To be
really
fair,
enjoying this.
I think Nissa's really good in this. And I think Sarah Sutton, maybe she was given instructions to like make it more of her own thing for this season. I don't know.
She's less alien, isn't she?
Yeah.
She's more
100%.
just a
100%.
normal person, which is she's coming to her own.
I mean, honestly, I really enjoyed it, and I'm really surprised because I sort of had the impression that I'd watched the best Fifth Doctor stories, but obviously this is a nice little surprise so far. So hopefully it stays on track anyway.
So then we get to the cliffhanger, the Guardian speaking to Turlough telepathically, and he's like, bash his head in. Bash it in with a rock.
Yeah. Crack his skull like an egg boy.
Yeah. The chicken commands you.
Turlough lifts this rock, and the end credits Sting comes in, doesn't it?
Yeah. So that's part one. That was a lot of fun.
It was a lot of fun.
Yeah. I wonder what happens next week.
Oh, God. Thank God I haven't got to wait a week.
No, thank God. I need to know what happens with the rock. How will he get out of this one?
Probably
Duck.
without being too
Duck
injured.
and roll.
Yeah.
We finished Mawdryn Undead.
We have.
We watched part one and then we spoke about it for a bit and then we decided to just watch the last 3 parts this morning. Yeah.
What did you think?
It was unexpected. Definitely didn't go where I thought it was going to go. It became timey-wimey.
Yeah.
Which I thought was nuts. I've never really looked into this story before and I'm glad I didn't because we went into it blind, didn't we, both of us?
Yeah, it's funny because it's very timey-wimey, isn't it?
It's the multi-brigadier story everybody asked for.
Yeah. But the weird thing is that plots that are timey-wimey in Classic Who are actually really rare. Complexities involving time travel itself rarely are a thing in Classic Who. Like, the only real examples I can think of apart from this one are Trial of a Time Lord and Day of the Daleks, you know, where they create that paradox. Yeah, it's really rare. And then on top of that, the other rare thing that it does is that the theme of it is actually stolen Time Lord technology, isn't it? And that's also really rare in Classic Who.
That's what I thought was quite different about it. It involved one piece of stolen technology from Gallifrey, bastardized by this race, and had some really unsettling results. It sort of expanded on the Doctor's lore, like the Time Lord lore, in a really unusual way.
Mm-hmm.
Like you said, with the late Tom Baker stories that involved the Time Lords, it was cool to see more of Gallifrey and more of the Time Lords and things like that. But it was very like overt. It was in your face. They were there with all their collars and snobbery and all stuff like that.
Mm-hmm.
But this was like other races. They knew what Gallifrey had achieved, what the Time Lords had achieved, and they were jealous of that, and they wanted it for themselves. And this is the story of a group of a spaceship that managed to steal some of that technology, try to use it with like absolutely disastrous and really scary results.
Consequences.
Yeah. It's really a really dark story, this was, which is not where I expected it to go at all.
Yeah, it's like the idea that other alien races want a piece of like the Time Lord pie, and they want to have the abilities and the godlike sort of powers that Time Lords possess. But then you sort of realize that when you try that, their bodies aren't equipped to deal with things like regeneration. And so the consequences it has are like a fate worse than death, isn't it? Where they're sort of perpetually unable to die.
And they're begging to die.
And their bodies are in these like disfigured, bloody sort of states, aren't they?
Yeah. So we'll start with like part 2. So obviously with the cliffhanger of Turlough about to bash the Doctor's brains in on orders of the
rock,
the Black Guardian with a rock. So the Doctor was saved by an explosion. So what he was working on exploded and it put Turlough off, and he lost the opportunity to do that.
Yeah.
And I love that Tegan and Nyssa, whilst all this is going on, are literally just chilling in the TARDIS on their wicker conservatory chic furniture.
Yeah.
They're just sat in front of the console. They're like, just like every scene that they're in, or most of them, they're like just having a chat with each other.
Yeah, they get left behind quite a bit, don't they, at this point?
They're just like looking at their nails like, oh God, don't like that Turlo fella. And I loved it. I loved every single bit of it because they're such, well, the lesbian rumours, they continue to be strong. They're so like coupley. The couple rumour between Nyssa and Tegan, it's strong in this serial.
It's funny, like I've never really noticed it before, but I feel like watching this episode, I know that Nyssa feels a bit different this season compared to the previous season. She's a bit more casual, isn't she? A bit more relaxed.
Which I like.
Yeah.
She's not playing it like an alien anymore.
Yeah, she's not really.
And this is when the story went somewhere that I really didn't think it was going to go, and it was the TARDIS just drifting off, but then reappearing at another point in time in the same place, but earlier in time. And I think that this story does not get enough praise for how, when you first see the Brigadier, because in my mind, like the Brigadier pops up throughout Doctor Who's like history over so many different decades. When he pops up in this story, I presume this is what Nicholas Courtney looked like. So it blew my mind when in part 2 you see a younger version of the Brigadier, and like to de-age him, they put him in a slimmer, more fitted suit, whereas in the future Brigadier, his clothes were a lot more ill-fitting, that made him look a bit more stout, I think.
A bit frumpier.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't know if they dyed his hair black or grey, but the future version of the Brigadier's got grey hair.
Yeah.
And the younger version he's got black hair, and he's got a tash. I don't know if that's fake tash or if they filmed his scenes with a tash and then said, right, shave it, we're going to do your old scenes.
Yeah.
But like...
It caught me off guard, actually.
It's so believable.
Because that's the bit, isn't it, when Tegan approaches him, and just before that happens, he mentions to the Doctor in the present day, which is to us as the viewer, the later Brigadier. That's when you realise that she did indeed visit him before, and we're just seeing it now. But that's when it clicks that there's something timey-wimey going on, and it's going to be a story that uses different time periods rather than just being set in one.
We also saw the last appearance of Hippo in this part. He just doesn't pop up again.
Yeah.
And the last scene that he's in part 2 is just him getting dragged again by the future Brigadier.
Ah, so there you are, Turlo. Sir?
What happened? The sphere?
Oh, do be quiet, boy.
Yeah.
But then after that, we get that lovely Doctor and Brigadier reunion.
Yeah.
But obviously, I couldn't tell if the Brigadier was like being coy or if he genuinely didn't remember the Doctor. Because like the Doctor started mentioning Unit and he was like, hush now, we need to go find somewhere to talk. But no, it turned out when the Doctor got the Brigadier on his own, that he had no recollection of the Doctor, because it's like forming part of the mystery. Why on earth would the Brigadier not remember the Doctor? Because it's a huge part of his life.
And obviously, like, then it transpires that at the end of the story, you realise why he has this like amnesia-esque effect going on. And when the Brigadier remembers, you see like flashbacks of classic episodes that he was involved in. And it's like, that's showing us that all the memories are sort of coming flooding back, I imagine.
I've never seen that before. And
it's very rare in Classic Who.
They wrote this like beautiful piece of music for it. And the choice of clips that they used were really cool as well. Although he probably could have featured in a few more of them.
The clips?
Yeah.
Yeah, probably.
But it was like, I mean, I don't know. I'm not familiar enough with Classic Who, but I presume that all the clips were of things that he had witnessed, surely, one way or another.
Well, yeah, kind of. Like, there were clips in there of K1 Robot, weren't there? And a Dalek from Day of the Daleks and stuff. But it was things like he was never in the house with K1 and he was never in that gold Dalek control room. No. But they're clips from stories that he was involved with, do you know?
Yeah.
So I get what it's trying to say.
And then we got to one of the more questionable parts of the story, which is when Tegan and Nyssa seem to be acting really daft all of a sudden. They find this really like burnt man and they presume it's the Doctor for some reason. Like, actually, I guess it's because they heard an explosion, right?
Well, it's because he stumbles out of the pod thing, isn't it? And they know that the doctor was in there.
Right.
Is that right?
I think so. Or I thought there was a little explosion with the device the doctor was working on, and did they think...
Oh, yeah. They thought he'd burnt himself or something.
Yeah.
So then, they bring him into the TARDIS, don't they? And they think he's like regenerating.
Yeah. It's all a bit odd.
Yeah, I mean, that's kind of fair. It's like, he's an alien, and they've seen it happen before, but they have only seen it once. So it's like, but he doesn't really look anything like the Doctor.
He's not wearing the Doctor's clothes.
He's barely wearing any clothes.
Yeah. I mean, I was looking for the if I was them, I'd look for the vegetable, but there was just nothing.
What, the celery?
Yeah.
A trace of his white coat.
Yeah.
It's weird. There's loads of things that would mean that it's not the Doctor, but Nyssa seems to think that it's the Doctor for some reason, and Tegan seems quite sure it's not. They're kind of like one and one both ways. And then when the Brigadier appears, he's like, don't worry, I've seen regeneration twice before. And this is like, so have we. He's also not sure what to think, but they bring him into the TARDIS, don't they, against their better judgment, in case it's what he needs.
Yeah. I like that, though, because it's like the Brigadier's trying to take charge. He's like got experience with the Doctor, but he's just as out of his depth as the rest of them. But he's trying to keep the situation under control. And so it's at this point, isn't it? There's two Brigadiers running around, right?
Yeah. The past Brigadiers with Tegan and Nyssa, which is the one that wears the black suit.
And the burnt man.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. And then the
future Brigadiers with the Doctor.
Yeah, that's right.
There's some really nice dialogue about when the Doctor last regenerated with Tegan, and they talk about the Zero Room, which, if you remember in Castrovalva, is where they put the Doctor in that white room, in that cabinet, that TARDIS cabinet.
Yeah.
Do you remember that?
I mean, vaguely. And
it's supposed to like help him with his like regeneration trauma. But obviously, it got jettisoned. It doesn't exist anymore. And Nyssa makes reference to that. And Tegan talks about how in the past of the regeneration, the Doctor's needed to have his friends with him because he often goes through trauma and it can be dangerous if there's no one there to assist him with things. And obviously that's only really the case with the Fifth Doctor's regeneration. So it's nice that she remembers that. They're all a bit suspicious because this burnt kind of humanoid they found inside this pod, while that's where they thought the Doctor was, he's not acting like the Doctor, and he wants to be taken back to the ship, the kind of Art Deco posh ship they were on before. And Tegan and Nyssa both think that really he should want to be in the TARDIS somewhere safe. But he's adamant, isn't he, that he needs to get out and go to this other spaceship.
It's a red flag.
Yeah.
But they go along with it anyway.
They decide that if it is the Doctor and he needs to get out of the TARDIS, he'll struggle and he'll suffer. And if it's not the Doctor, they'll have to just take that risk.
To be fair, this burnt man was gaslighting them. Like every time they were stopping
Quite
to like
severely.
trying to think about the situation, he was like, "You're torturing me," and they were like, "Okay, all right." So he was putting them under pressure to give them credit. I thought all the scenes with the Doctor and the, what do we call him, future or present Brigadier? Present day.
The one with the present, I would say present Brigadier, because it's presented as the past, isn't it? The previous one.
Yeah. So present day Brigadier and the Doctor, they have some really nice scenes because they really leave the Doctor and the Brigadier alone for their scenes.
I agree.
In the Brigadier's quarters.
Yeah.
And that goes on for quite a long time, but they've got a lot to catch up on. You really
it's really nice, that actually.
Really lovely. You get like a huge payoff for that. And like the Doctor's judging him a little bit because he's like, you've retired and you're now teaching. Can we talk about the unit dating controversy?
Oh, God.
So I've never heard of this before.
Must we?
So the original intent of the story was to have Ian Chesterton return, but William Russell was unavailable due to stage commitment. Some consideration was given to using Harry Sullivan, but then they decided to go with the Brigadier in the end. This story meant that the unit dating controversy that started during the Third Doctor's era, wasn't it? Because that's the biggest chunk of time you spend with
the Brigadier
and unit. They were having trouble after that with dates and times, weren't they? And apparently they were acutely aware of that when they were writing Mawdryn Undead, but they ended up blundering it even more because according to the dates in this story, the Brigadier retired in 1976.
Mm-hmm.
However, the events of the invasion, the story in which UNIT properly appears for the first time, that occurs in 1979. Therefore, the UNIT dating controversy is, broadly speaking, an attempt to understand how the Brigadier could have retired from UNIT before UNIT even existed.
Yeah.
So
It's a mess. But it's the sort of thing that I don't think the fact that we've got an 80s episode with the Fifth Doctor and the Brigadier catching up, and I'd never even really thought about this episode before, but the fact that it's actually really good, I don't care that it's a controversy. I just care that it exists and it's good.
Yeah, it's just like,
I don't mind.
Those who look into things like really in depth, it would bother some people, but honestly, dates and things go over my head anyway. I'm not really keeping track of the Brigadier's fictional career, but I do get that's quite a blunder. Yeah, fair enough. You know, maybe he goes back to UNIT. Who knows? Who knows?
Yeah.
But because of this story, you know, he's been lifted out of time at 2 points anyway.
Yeah.
So it's all a bit of a mess. But I love that the Brigadier is involved in this story and like there's 2 Brigadiers. I thought that was nuts. And all the scenes where they both appear together were flawless.
Yeah, I'm surprised that it was that extensive. Like, I thought, they might have 2 Brigadiers for a brief bit of the story or whatever, or for like a gag.
It was integral.
But like, yeah, it was the crux of the story and the big moment towards the end. It was all about that and about how the impact that it has on events that transpire over the next episode and a half. The crux of it is that the Brigadier being there at 2 separate times in his life. That's the sort of fix, isn't it?
Yeah, and there's 2 Brigadiers trying to solve 2 mysteries, which are the same mystery. Everyone's working together over 2 different time zones.
Yeah.
I just thought it was so clever. Like at one point, the Doctor and the present day Brigadier are in the Brigadier's quarters catching up. So that's in 1983. And meanwhile, in 1977, Tegan's found her way back to the Brigadier's quarters and sat there having a glass of wine with him for some reason.
Yeah.
They're all like working together. Yeah, I just thought it's great.
It was nice to be kept guessing.
Yeah.
Because a lot of the time with Fifth Doctor episodes, when we've watched a new one, it's not really gone down quite as well as this. But it was nice to be kept guessing as part of a story that I was actually really enjoying.
It definitely took a few turns that we weren't expecting, which was
100%.
nice. So we've saved this because it felt a little bit secondary, I think, to us. There's far more interesting things going on, but in the background of all of this, you do have Turlough. He hops back into bed at one point, and he's visited by his head teacher, who's not his head teacher. It's the Black Guardian in disguise. He's still being influenced. I mean, the whole Black Guardian stuff, it's not resolved in this story at all. I'm not that interested in it. I think Turlough is really annoying.
You don't like him, do you?
I can't stand him. And like, jumping ahead, the fact that he gets a handshake on the TARDIS and it's like, welcome aboard, and he literally did nothing except work against the Doctor the whole time.
I'm not that easy to get rid of.
So it seems.
Doctor, may I join you?
I think you already have.
It's like, really?
It does make the Doctor seem a bit bumbling, doesn't it? That he's not this person who, for some reason, he seems to trust innately, immediately. It's like, why is he like your bestie all of a sudden?
Well, you said, which was a really good point in our last chat, you think that the Black Guardian's already got influence over the Doctor to make him trust him, like explicitly.
There seems to be a bit of that going on in episode 1 for this story, for sure.
Yeah.
And maybe that'll get built on as the episodes progress. Because as we know, with the Fifth Doctor's era, they did continue character arcs like the 60s did.
Yeah, when we watch Perry episodes, there's still stuff with Turlough about him trying to kill the Doctor and stuff.
Well, they're talking about it, aren't they? Because they only cross over in one episode.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's a big part of Planet of Fire.
Yeah.
The Turlough leaving stuff.
To give it credit, that entire sequence where the headmaster is actually the Black Guardian whilst Turlough's in bed is really trippy, because Turlough gets out of his bed, but he's got an outer body experience and his body remains in the bed.
Yeah.
And the Black Guardian has some really cool dialogue. He says, he says to him, waking or sleeping, you can never escape me, Turlo. I was like, go off, Freddy Krueger.
Welcome to my world, bitch.
But it was creepy, to be fair. It was really creepy.
Whenever they do that in this, it was really well done. The out-of-body stuff.
And he says, I am the Black Guardian. The Doctor's good is my evil. You will absorb my will. You are to be consumed of my purpose. He's very malevolent, isn't he?
He's very evil.
Yeah. But, yeah.
I was thinking, in The Key to Time, the guy in the chair at the start of the season, is he not the White Guardian?
It's been such a long time since I watched that.
Do you remember him or not really?
Not really.
He looks a bit like Colonel Sanders.
No. Should we talk about the cliffhanger of part 2?
Yes.
Put me right off my spaghetti bolognese.
Doctor!
Disgusting.
Awful.
Vile.
Awful.
Oh.
I mean, it's supposed to be that his brain's exposed, isn't it?
Oh.
And I guess they couldn't really have made it look any bloodier than that. I mean, I'm quite surprised it looks like it does.
Yeah.
It does look vaguely spaghetti-like, but also it's disgusting. It pulsates.
Yep. The whole time. I don't even know how they did that.
And the idea that this thing's alive with its brain like hanging out, pulsating, is just, I don't know how they got away with it.
And that you learn later that this is all like a mutation because they were trying to use the Time Lord regeneration.
Yeah.
Like they're being tortured. It's proper like body horror, isn't it?
Well, it's all of them, isn't it? All of the scientists have the same ailments.
Oh, it's disgusting.
Yeah.
Yeah, so the cliffhanger is Mawdryn is in the TARDIS, draped in the Fourth Doctor's coat, being inside the TARDIS.
Yes.
His body had been restored slightly, and his brain was visible poking out and throbbing through the top of his skull. And Nyssa screams, and that's the cliffhanger.
Scary.
Yeah. It was just so funny because the Brigadier is so like cocksure. He's like, don't worry, I know all about regeneration. I've seen it twice before. Come on. And then he walks in and Spaghetti Brains is there and like he doesn't know what to do.
Yeah.
But any more to say about part 2?
Well, when it finished, we were going to record some more of this. But I said to Sean, really, like it's raised more questions than it has answered anything. So we thought it best to keep going because at this point we were a bit unsure about quite a few things.
Yeah.
But then it all became clear as the story progressed.
That's it. It did. Yeah, so we started part 3.
Okay, so TARDIS Wiki says, under the pretense of being the Doctor, suffering a failed regeneration, Mawdryn convinces the others to bring the TARDIS into his ship, claiming it has restorative capabilities. Meanwhile, the Doctor, Turlo, and the present-day Brigadier use a TARDIS homing device on the damaged transmat to bring themselves to the ship, splitting up soon after to search for Tegan and Nyssa. So, in this episode, one of the things that really hit me was the fact that we go back to this like very opulent-looking ship, and now I see why they made so much effort with the sets, because you see so much of this craft, and the whole point of it is that it's supposed to have this like Garden of Eden quality where it feels like a space where like enlightened people would live, and the idea is that the people that were living there, obviously it appears deserted now, but I said to Sean whilst we were watching this, I bet, they've been meddling with technology, didn't I? 'Cause I suspected that it was to do with regeneration.
Yeah. In this episode, we see the stolen piece of Time Lord technology. It's like like a lab, like a room with like beds, isn't it?
Mm-hmm.
And this is what they stole from the Time Lords. The only thing, it was beautifully designed, this set, and it was so cool to see another set. And I said to you, like, wow, the set designer really didn't know when to stop because they
did go crazy
so hard. And it's a piece of artwork, but I would have liked to see more like Time Lordy decal incorporated into it.
Yeah.
It was a bit sterile looking, a bit like, it was gorgeous, but nothing to link it visually to the Time Lords, and they'd already long established sort of the aesthetic of Gallifrey in the Fourth Doctor's era. So I was surprised that they didn't bring that over really.
When we saw this set for the first time, they're so much like crammed in front of those cameras, and the sets are fantastic. And you do think to yourself, like, Arc of Infinity was the same season as this, and those sets were so much more basic, and that was the season opener. So unless that was filmed at the back end of the last season, I really don't get why a control room on a deserted spaceship looks as grand as this compared to other stuff we've seen. It's like the Gallifreyan corridors. Do you know?
Yeah.
But just the art direction of the story and actually the direction as well. We said how slick it all feels. It's really competently made.
Then we learn that Mawdryn is not the only person on the ship.
No.
So there is like a room where there are, eight other sort of his kind.
Yeah.
And they've all got the same conditions. Their brains are all exposed and it's just awful. And it turns out that there's like a cycle that once every so often the spaceship locks onto a nearby planet and they're all able to sort of give themselves to one member of the crew to transmat down to the planet to try and find help.
Yeah.
It's so bleak.
Yeah, because Mawdryn explains that he was part of a group of scientists that sought to, like you say, bastardize Time Lord technology for their own use. And in doing this, they were exiled by the leaders of their planet onto this spacecraft, which, nonetheless, they got exiled in a very nice spacecraft by Classic Who standards. They could have been on like a dusty old freighter, but they've been sent off on this nice craft, but they are trapped. And periodically, they get sent off to the nearest planet, don't they? Like the ship docks to the nearest planet, and that's their chance to like try and find assistance. So they are in a bit of a predicament.
Yeah.
Because they're unable to die, aren't they? And they're also weary from their bodies, like mutating constantly from the regeneration effects gone wrong, that they just want to die, but they're unable to. So they're always in this undead state, hence the name.
And the Doctor's all high and mighty and says that, the Time Lords were just to turn their backs on them and not help them because they were criminals in what they did. And the Doctor calls them that. And then their own race was just in exiling them for what they did as well.
Who are they?
Fools who tried to turn themselves into Time Lords. It all went disastrously wrong.
It is eternal agony. That is why we long for death.
When in reality, we know now in New Who that the entire race of Time Lords only exists because they stole the ability to regenerate from the Doctor, who isn't a Time Lord. Their origin is unknown.
Yeah.
So it's kind of like full circle, isn't it?
Yeah, it supports the idea that the Time Lords are...
They did this. They stole it.
Yeah, they have bad morals.
Yeah. But obviously that hadn't been written when this came out, but...
it works quite well.
It does, to be fair. And the whole idea of trying to steal this gift, it's been used a couple of times now, and I always think it's used well. Obviously, you see it again when the Daleks try and steal it in The Magician's Apprentice. Yeah, then we sort of get a big build-up to the cliffhanger of part 3. I mean, there's not much to say about Turlough. He's just wandering around the ship trying to fuck over everyone.
And periodically he'll get a vision of the Black Guardian.
He's pissed
throwing
off
his
at
weight
him.
around.
Yeah. Again, I just wasn't invested in that at all because he was thwarted at every turn anyway. And
I have to say, Turlough seems a little bit incompetent for this. I don't really know why the Black Guardian chose Turlough, but I like the notion that Turlough has these like out-of-body experiences and when he sees the Black Guardian, but that stops happening now. And now he starts to see the Black Guardian spawning like in picture frames and in mirrors and whenever he gets a moment to himself. And it's just interesting. I have to say, watching this story now, I'm more interested in Turlough than I've ever been because I see why he acts the way he does. Because I've only really seen him in a few stories, but he always seems to have a bit of a chip on his shoulder, or he's acting a bit unusual or a bit weird. But I see now why he's like that because of this like ongoing story. I'm intrigued to see where it goes, but it's not the focus of the story, is it really? It's kind of like a running thread.
Yeah.
I
mean, I think that because we've got the box set now. We weren't going to get it because the Fifth Doctor era isn't our favourite, so we usually do skip those box sets. But we watched the DVD of this, the first part. We really enjoyed it, and we realised that the Five Doctors is on this box set as well, and we love that. So we decided to take the plunge and buy it. So I think we should stick with it and carry on with the Black Guardian trilogy. Yeah. Why not? We'll see.
This is certainly a good start.
Yeah, and Yeah, because I'm intrigued as well. And I find Turlo really annoying, but I actually do feel quite sorry for him because, I mean, the amount of things that the Black Guardian does to him in this serial alone, he's completely destroying his sanity. Like, you wouldn't know what to trust ever again. He's impersonated people. He's created out-of-body experiences. He's morphed into things that he's looking at, like statues. Like, it's quite scary, the amount of power the Black Guardian has. So I'm intrigued by that at least. I'm just a bit annoyed at how easily the Doctor's been blindsided by it, but we'll see what happens there.
We'll have to wait and see if there's an ongoing plot with that. But I'd love to, because like I said when we last recorded, season 20, I've not really seen anything much of season 20, so it's exciting to go through it with you as well for the first time.
Yeah. Have you seen the next 2 stories?
No.
Okay, cool.
I don't know anything about them.
Well, that's a reason to watch it as well. We get a really cool cliffhanger, to be fair. Like, again, it's not where I thought the story would go. There are 8 of these people, and obviously the Doctor's he said, I've got 12 regenerations and I've regenerated 4 times. So he said, they all said, please help us. And he said, I have to give one of my lives to each of you to like set you free from the Time Lord's curse and set them free from their suffering. He's obviously hesitant to do that. So the cliffhanger is, don't you understand? If I did this, it would be the end of me as a Time Lord.
They're immortal?
For what it's worth, help us. No! Give us the energy of a Time Lord. Help us to die! I can't! For pity's sake.
Doctor, why can't you help them?
Don't you understand? If I did, it would be the end of me as a Time Lord.
It's a great idea.
It is. I thought that was great.
It does feel a bit Timeless Children-y, doesn't it? How it's about regeneration as something that you can give, that you can
take or give.
Or
experiment
exactly.
with.
It's a great idea for an episode.
Yeah, I'm really surprised. I keep saying it, but like I said today when we were watching this, my God, there's not an original idea in New Who. Because like, in one way or another, it has sort of been plucked from, and too right. I mean, it's all part of the same machine, so why wouldn't they? But like, massive kudos to Classic Who for coming up with these mind-blowing concepts. Like, I don't even know how they would have thought of this in the 80s. I don't know why. It's great.
But the idea that there's a species that have tried to take the regeneration ability and it's gone hideously wrong for them, and this story is about the Doctor trying to like get around those consequences. It's like, I didn't really know that you got stories like that in Classic Who that were about regeneration, but from like the point of view of a lesser being, do you know?
Yeah.
That's unable to take on that ability. I thought it was really good. And that's before you get to all the stuff with the Brigadier. And I am intrigued by the Turlo subplot. The fact that it all looks great is just a bonus.
Yeah, exactly. And I just love the Brigadier's there. And the Doctor's got such a big like posse now as well. Like, he's got Tegan,
they're a gang, aren't they?
He's got the Brigadier, he's got Turlo. Yeah, I love it. It's really interesting as well because this race, these 8 people, they don't want the Doctor's regenerations to become immortal. They just want it so they can die.
Yeah.
So it's not like they are completely like evil. They've messed with something they shouldn't have messed with. They admit that, and they just want to be set free from this awful like suffering. So it's really conflicting. Like, this position that the Doctor's in, it's really conflicting. Yeah. So part 4.
So the Doctor sees them as being greedy for trying to steal this ability, doesn't he?
Yeah.
So he refuses to help them.
This is when it gets sinister.
Yeah, he says, I know that you'll come back to us.
I cannot do what you ask.
You cannot refuse.
I must.
So be it, Doctor. Leave now with your friends. But accept the consequences of your actions.
What does he mean?
I don't know.
Back to the TARDIS?
The Brigadier is just like, back to the TARDIS?
Yeah.
It's like, I want to go home now.
Let's fuck off. Come on.
I've had enough.
Yep.
So then they all start heading back, don't they? And Turlo finds the old Brigadier, doesn't he? Because he's been wandering around the spaceship.
Yeah, he tries to lock him up as well and all sorts.
And chucks him into the side room.
There's a real danger that if the 2 Brigadiers meet, it would be catastrophic. like a paradoxical, and that it just mustn't happen. And the Doctor's kind of trying to stop it, but he's also kind of preoccupied.
Yeah.
Turlough tries locking him up because the Black Guardian told him to do that. It's all a bit whatever, ham-fisted.
Yeah, because the Black Guardian's panicking now that all of his plans, he hadn't expected there'd be 2 brigadiers there. So he's like, my plans are threatened. You get rid of the brigadier. And I thought this would mean that Turlough would try and kill him, but thankfully not. He just puts him in a side room, which the brigadier promptly escapes from.
Because you know what made me laugh? So the Doctor made this point of asking Turlough to take the younger brigadier back to Earth through the transmat pod, and he would take the present day brigadier in the TARDIS. So that sort of goes wrong and causes a whole other bunch of problems because Turlough doesn't follow those instructions. And then in the end, all the Doctor ends up doing, because I thought, they can't travel in the same TARDIS or it would cause a rip in whatever time and space. In the end, they bring the younger brigadier into the TARDIS, shove him in the back room and say, don't come out. And then they bring the older one and then they just drop him off one by one at the end of the story.
Yeah, exactly.
But anyway, it's just, I think the Doctor was trying to be overly cautious and then that blew up in his face.
Mm-hmm.
But we get a really scary scene in the TARDIS next. Like one of the most sinister scenes in Doctor Who I've ever witnessed.
Oh, yeah. There was a problem with the Doctor.
Doctor, do something.
What's happening?
I don't know.
It's like Mawdryn in the laboratory.
Mawdryn. That's it!
The Doctor decides to try and leave Mawdryn's ship, but unknown to him, Mawdryn's put almost a curse on Nyssa and Tegan, because when they tried to load his body into the TARDIS, when he was like a bloodied, sort of bruised corpse, they were infected by the same kind of genetic problem that's affecting Mawdryn, like a virus, it's said. And so when the Doctor tries to leave, when they're trying to travel through time, it forces Tegan and Nyssa's bodies to sort of decompose. And they actually start to decompose while they're still conscious and present.
Yeah.
And they're stood there. The camera cuts to Nyssa and Tegan, and their flesh is like rotting and peeling off, and they're screaming. It's hideous, honestly.
Yeah, you wouldn't want to travel in the TARDIS anymore when you go through something like that.
No.
I did like
it's awful.
It when, because it's chilling because the Doctor shouts at the Brigadier, because the Brigadier goes to help them and he shouts, don't touch them.
Yeah.
They've been contaminated. Like, oh, God. So the Doctor has to like slam the brakes on the TARDIS and reverse it. And that ends up de-aging Nyssa and Tegan to children.
It's no good, Doctor!
We're travelling in the opposite direction out of the ellipse. It's having the reverse effect.
Stop! Stop!
I guess that was to lighten the tone, because we've just seen Nyssa and Tegan age into like wrinkled, like corpses, yeah, while still calling out to help and that sort of stuff. Yeah, so then it seems like the only thing they can do is actually
go back,
agree with Mawdryn and help Mawdryn, which is why he was so self-assured. He knew what he'd done,
yeah,
and knew that the Doctor would have no choice but to return.
That's it. It's a rock and a hard place. I think they are. It solidifies them as sort of hyper-intelligent beings. I mean, they'd have to be to mess around with this technology.
Yeah, definitely.
But they've literally created this scenario to ensure that the Doctor's hand is forced when the time comes for him to help them. You know,
yeah, because Mawdryn keeps on saying that the Doctor needs to assist them by his own will.
Yeah.
Which
it's not his own will.
I guess that
though,
means that, I don't know. I was wondering, because we know that regeneration, especially with like Twice Upon a Time and stuff and episodes in the modern era, various references are made that they need to be in the right state of mind to embrace regeneration.
Like Davros couldn't steal the regeneration; the Doctor had to give it, so he created the entire scenario.
Yeah,
it's lifted. That's lifted from this, really, isn't it?
But again, like retroactively, it works because it's the idea that the Doctor needs to feel like he's doing it on his own will, not that he's being forced to do it. So I like it. It works.
I don't really understand the resolution. So the Doctor agrees, and he ends up strapping Nyssa and Tegan into this circuit, as well as the 8 of that species. I don't
So
think
they can
even have
heal
a
them
name,
too.
do they? We only know Mawdryn by name. I don't know if we have a name for the
No,
species.
only a couple of the other ones speak.
Yeah. The doctor's about to give him his regenerations to heal them. And at the very last moment, the young brigadier stumbles in, doesn't he?
Yeah.
And meets the old brigadier, which is done really well. Like,
yeah, it is.
It's seamless.
Yeah.
And they end up touching, and that creates, like, it shorts out everything. And
Father's Day style.
yeah, it creates like a time differential or something sci-fi like that. And it ended up being that the doctor didn't have to give his regenerations. The machine used that as the power source instead.
Yeah. The doctor says it's a burst of temporal energy, which is to do with time, isn't it? So in that exact second, the doctor said, had it have been a millisecond out, it wouldn't have worked. But because it was right at the crux, the energy that would have been drained from the doctor was like re-channeled into the interchange with the machine. So all of Mawdryn's followers and himself start to die, and Nyssa and Tegan are restored. Both the brigadiers are knocked out, and there's like a moment of calm, isn't there, after this build-up?
Yeah, and it's quite sad because Mawdryn, he has his last breath, and he like thanks the doctor for setting them free.
It is finished, Doctor. Can this be death?
And you do sort of feel sorry for him in the end, do you know?
Yeah.
It is really sad. It's really bleak completely for that, for those eight people.
Yeah.
But that's what you get for messing around, wanting to be immortal and stuff.
Well, they seem quite at peace, don't they, with it at the end? But yeah, so in the blast, both brigadiers are knocked back, and you realise that this is the reason why the present day brigadier doesn't recognise the doctor, because he has amnesia from the blast.
Yeah, which is
completely
sad.
Makes sense.
It's sad though, because he's got to live a couple of years of his life not remembering the doctor.
Yeah, and that explains why when they meet him at first, when we first see the brigadier, he's very austere, because I think that's the idea that he's developed without any of that
influence of the doctor that softens him up.
Yeah.
It's really sad, because you know that he will get to remember, but he will live his life for a couple of years not remembering the doctor.
Yeah.
So yeah, they drop him off. There's a really lovely moment where Tegan says to the doctor, "Before we go, doctor, I just want to thank you. You are prepared to risk everything for us."
Come on, we must get the brigadier back to 1977.
Before we go, Doctor, thank you. You were prepared to risk everything for us.
Come on.
I thought that was so nice.
Yeah, I agree. Very rare as well. Rare one-to-one moment for the Fifth Doctor.
Yeah.
And he doesn't really say anything to her, does he?
Like he's a bit socially awkward, isn't he? But
a little bit, yeah.
It's just lovely, and that sort of thing makes you want to watch this era from beginning to end, because there's you can see there's development.
Yeah, definitely.
More so than I think you got in any sort of companions towards the end of the Fourth Doctor's era. I don't know
definitely.
if you would get this sort of arc that in that era. I don't get a sense.
It was very much the Tom Baker show, wasn't it, by then?
Yeah.
Really.
This was lovely. And they're all really well written. Like, there's a lot of characters here, and none of them... I know that we made a joke that Nyssa and Tegan were like sat in the TARDIS filing their nails and commenting on things that were going on, but they had a lot to do a lot of the time. Like, it's really hard to juggle all these characters and for them all to feel necessary by the end.
Yeah. And frankly, the only one who really slips under the radar in those last couple of minutes is actually Turlough. And he is inside the TARDIS at one point. The Doctor and co rush back after everything's finished. And you sort of think he could do anything he wants to now, but he sort of stands there. They arrive and he says to the Doctor, "Can I join you?" And the Doctor says, "I think you already have," and shakes his hand. And it's like, oh.
While Tegan and Nyssa roll their eyes at each other.
Yeah. They actually do, don't they?
Yeah. And Mawdryn's ship goes kaboom.
Yeah.
But
yeah.
before that happens, there was another lovely moment we forgot to mention, where after they drop off the younger Brigadier, the present-day Brigadier gets to talk to the Doctor about the TARDIS, and he says, "My word, you've been making some changes in here, Doctor."
Oh, yeah.
And the Doctor says, "One has to move with the times. How are you feeling?" And the Brigadier says, "Haven't felt so well for at least 6 years."
Yeah.
And the Doctor says, "There we are, 1983, back to school, Brigadier."
Yeah.
I love that.
Yeah, it's very much a nice Brigadier story, wasn't it, really?
Really nice. And although I think that Battlefield is a better sort of hurrah for the Brigadier,
yeah,
I do love this as well.
Yeah, this is really nice to have. Battlefield is doing something different, isn't it? Whereas, well, no, this is doing something different. Battlefield is very much like the old soldier sort of theming.
Yeah.
It's very much like in full force, whereas this is a Brigadier
like a check-in. You check in
who
with
thought
him.
he'd moved on from adventuring, but here he is, frankly, the main sort of crux of the story, isn't he?
And it's like, even though the Doctor wasn't in the Brigadier's life for his whole life, it's like the Doctor was kind of in the Brigadier's entire life, because the Doctor kept popping into him and he sees him every stage of his life, like when he was a school teacher and when he was a head of unit and when he was this and that. And like, I just love that. Like, you know, no wonder the Brigadier was so fond of the Doctor, because it was literally his friend for his whole life.
Yeah. And it's even nice to hear them mention like Joe and Sarah and Liz.
Yeah, that was lovely.
Because they never do that in classic, really, you know?
Very rarely, yeah. Brilliant. So what are you giving that one out of 10?
That was great. I thought that was really good. Especially for a Fifth Doctor era, I know we're going with quite low expectations, but obviously I was wrong. I'd give it an 8, I think, for me.
Yeah, I was going to give it a 7 or a 7.5.
Yeah.
Definitely.
Yeah.
Really enjoyed that. So what's the next story after that?
Terminus.
Okay, well, that's got a dog in it.
I think it's supposed to be quite a bleak one. Do you know, the only thing I remember about Terminus is a Doctor Who magazine years ago was going over some Fifth Doctor era stories, and one of the comments about Terminus was, "So you've just watched Terminus and feel like sticking your head into an oven."
Oh, God.
So that's going to be probably not a feel-good story, I imagine.
No. Okay, well, we'll give it a go. If the Black Guardian's in it, I'm excited to see that story continue.
Oh, yeah.
And there's a dog
I'm
in
sure
it.
it'll be good, to be fair. The 20th season is like an anniversary season, and I think we should stick it out now.
Yeah, all right then. Well, I mean, we just paid 60 quid for the box set, so we might as well. All right then. Okay, cool. Until Terminus.